Welcome inside this week's edition of Big Ten Wrestling and Beyond. Rick Pizzo joined, as always, by Shane Sparks. Our guest, Minnesota's Michael Blockas. Can't wait to chat with the 157-pound superstar. It was overall, Shane, another terrific, exciting, and last-second kind of weekend inside the league.
This was a phenomenal weekend, not only in Big Ten wrestling, but across the country. Big crowds, dual meets coming down to the final match. It was an electric weekend in January in college wrestling across the country.
Let's start with headlines, and they begin on Friday night in Columbus. And what a night for the Buckeyes against their arch rivals from Ann Arbor. Ohio State was down 10 points, just 4 bouts to go at 165. Bruce Hepner trailed 7-0 before clawing back to win 12-10. Ryder Rogotsky posted an upset tech at 184, and Luke Giog won a decision at 197 to set up the ultimate situation, a heavyweight showdown to decide the duel.
4,700 fans at heavyweight. It was Nick Feldman. He does it again. We saw him beat Cornell early January to ice the dual meet for the Buckeyes. It was a 1-1 match. Minute and a half to go. There you see Feldman scoring off the shot at Davison. He hangs on for the win. This place went crazy. Feldman at heavyweight, the big win for Ohio State.
What a monster. Also got to love the way the Gophers are wrestling right now after a weekend win over number 13 Rutgers. Early wins from Drew Roberts, Michael Blockas, Blaine Brenner, before Max McAnally and Garrett Joles posted upset dubs at 184-97 respectively. This one also came down to the final bout. 133, Tyler Wells knocking off top 10 Dylan Shawver in sudden victory.
Good dual meet in Bloomington. In-state rivals Indiana and Purdue. Great to see Brayton Lee back on the mat, an All-American a few years back. He knocked off 16th-ranked Joey Blaze 4-2. The Hoosiers over the Boilermakers 22-9. Angel Escobedo doing a great job leading those Hoosiers. DJ Washington, he was victorious as well.
How good is it to see Brayton Lee finally wrestling healthy? He is a bad dude when he is at 100%. Let's talk about the team stories from this past weekend, and we start with Ohio State. We'll get into the play-by-play, how they came back to beat Michigan in just a bit. But the big picture on Tom Ryan's team right now, Shane, looks a little bit different than it did a week or two ago.
Tom Ryan does such a great job. The Ohio State Buckeyes are always in the mix. They're 12-1 on the season, 4-0 in the Big Ten. What's impressed me most, Rick, they've had some big-time injuries to that starting lineup, but they develop guys, young guys. Those young Bucks have stepped up, and they are in really good position right now. Big dual meet victory, and now it's going to get tougher. The stiffer tests are ahead. They'll wrestle at Penn State on Friday. This was a really big win, and the way they did it was spectacular.
I think that's where the focus needs to go, because it simply looked like it wasn't going to happen at intermission. The way this duel started off for Ohio State, the fans inside the Cavelli are probably wondering what on earth is going on. The only points early because of a forfeit, and then not sure what the speech was that Coach Ryan gave at intermission, but whatever it was, it completely flipped the script.
Michigan in that first half. Dual meet began at 125 pounds. They win 4 of the 5 matches. 3 bonus point victories at 125, 133, and 149. At the intermission, they were down by 10, and then we go to 165 pounds, and this is where things turned. Bryce Hepner was down 7-0. 7-0, Rick. He was in a hole, but he kept shipping back. He scores a late takedown and a cradle, and he wins the match over Bo Mantanova at 165 pounds. Then it was Dylan Rogotsky at 184 pounds. He gets a tech fall. Luke Giog wins at 197. And then it was Luke Feldman against 4th-ranked Lucas Davison. That late takedown, 2019, Ohio State over Michigan. Cavelli was rocking.
And I'm telling you, that is the kind of duel and the kind of finish that can propel you to maybe do things that folks outside of Columbus don't really think are possible right now for the Buckeyes. Certainly a good week to be in the scarlet and gray. And you could say the same thing about the maroon and gold of Minnesota, because it's a gritty win over Rutgers. A really dangerous, by the way, Rutgers team. You have some expected wins, but also some unexpected wins for Brandon Egham's team to eventually salt this one away.
Scott Goodale and Rutgers are having a really good season. You said it. You know what Minnesota did? They got 3 buckets of Midwest grit, and they took it up to Piscataway. Big win at 184. Max McAnally, he defeated Brian Saldano. Then at 197, Garrett Joles, he's back down to 197. He was at heavyweight last year. He gets a late win over Poznansky, who was undefeated, 9th-ranked for the Scarlet Knights. And then 133, some of these young guys. Tyler Wells in the final seconds. He beats Dylan Shawver, and Minnesota picks up their first Big Ten dual meet victory. But I like what I've seen. They've wrestled Iowa and Nebraska. They lost in those dual meets, but they compete, and it starts with their staff. Brandon Eggum, Luke Becker, Trevor Brandvold, and Zach Sanders. It's a culture there, and these guys are competing hard. Good things to come. Good mix of veteran and young guys with the Gophers.
You mentioned those two losses, especially the one to Nebraska. Actually came down to the final match, had a chance in that one as well. A dangerous out right now. That being said, everybody's still chasing the top two there. Penn State and Iowa, those two teams with no issues this weekend. Penn State rolling over Maryland. Iowa has no issues over Illinois and Northwestern. It's almost as if we're just waiting for the main event to surface for these two teams.
Yeah, you watch both these teams over the weekend. A lot of bonus point victories. Carter Staracci at 174 pounds, the three-time national champion, has now won 60 straight matches. They were impressive in Maryland. Iowa with a pair of victories against Northwestern and Illinois. Then on Friday, a lot of bonus point wins. But now it is the heat of the Big Ten season. It's going to be a lot of fun these next couple of weeks. Stiffer tests.
We've already talked about some of the terrific individual performances, whether it was Bryce Hepner, Luke Geog, so many of those guys for Ohio State, whether it was Blockhus for Minnesota. But let's focus on a familiar face at a new place, and that being Brayton Lee. I mentioned how good it is to see this guy healthy because, Shane, when he is healthy, he is as good as anybody in the nation.
He was an All-American in 2021, Rick. He was cruising in 2022, beating the best guys in the country. Really good in all positions. Then in February against Ohio State, suffered a nasty elbow injury, and he hasn't been right. It's kept him off the mat, but he is back. It's a great story. He's back in his home state of Indiana, and a nice win against Joey Blaze, 4-2 in that dual meet. Great to see him back. Phenomenal smile. This is an awesome story in the Big Ten.
Another guy that I've been watching very closely this year is Pat Kennedy, going up from 65 to 74. He's not all the way to 74. Even he admits he's wrestling a little bit light there, but he keeps posting victories. And you want to talk about grit, right? Here's a guy that is maybe as tough as anybody that has wrestled in this league in a few years.
I respect so many things about Patrick Kennedy. Remember, Rick, he was a Big Ten finalist last year at 165 pounds. Then Mikey Caliendo comes in along with Jared Franick from NDSU, and Caliendo's got that spot at 165. So what does Kennedy do? He just bumps up a weight. He's a team player. He grinds. And by the way, Rick, he's pretty darn good. Goes into Champaign on Friday night, knocks off Edmund Ruth in a 5-1 decision. Patrick Kennedy, you said it, Rick. This guy is gritty. He's tough. He's phenomenal for the culture in that Iowa lineup. This guy is not going to give an inch, whether he's wrestling 165, 174, 184. He doesn't matter. He wants to compete.
All right, I'm not going to let you finish talking about Patrick Kennedy without bringing back a Terry Brands quote that you said he's kind of the embodiment of. What is that quote?
Years back, I heard Terry Brands make a quote that said, "We do things that make a billy goat puke." And that's what I think about with Patrick Kennedy. He is going to do whatever is required, whatever is asked. He's going to do it, Rick, and guess what? He's going to enjoy it.
I have no idea what exactly those things are that makes the billy goat do such things. And you know what? I don't want to know. We do know what Austin Gomez can do. We just hadn't really seen him do it in that maize and blue singlet very often. We saw it this past weekend.
Austin Gomez wrestling Dylan D'Amelio puts up 17 points on the All-American Buckeye. Austin Gomez, to me, Rick, is the perfect combination of home run hitter. This guy, the big stuff, scared money don't make money. We see the lateral drops, the upper body throws. He gets after it quickly, but it can also be death by 1,000 paper cuts. This guy is as technical as they come. He can shred you.
And I know you want to watch him going into the NCAA championships later on in 2024. Time for a quick break here on Wrestling and Beyond. Michael Blockas joins us next. This week's interview on the show as you take you to the Twin Cities. He knows how to wrestle tough, and so does Shane. This week's edition of Tough Wrestling also on the way in a little bit. And what you should know about Little Rock Wrestling. That's right, we focus on Little Rock.
Here's Blockas with a shot, and he takes this match to 4-4 on the scoreboard. Blockas is going to catch him and get near full points. That's correct. And here's Blockas. Michael Blockas, a late takedown. He comes in to cover Hawkeye and has Jared Franick his first defeat of the season.
You're seeing some highlights from what has been an outstanding season for today's guest on Big Ten Wrestling and Beyond, Minnesota's outstanding 157-pounder, Michael Blockas. Michael, we just saw highlights from the wins over Jared Franek, the dominant win over Peyton Robb as well. Folks could argue that you're wrestling as well as anybody in the country at any weight class right now. So for you, what's working so well?
I'd say just trusting in the process here at Minnesota and ultimately believing in myself. I know I'm the number one guy, whether they put a number 6 or whatever number they want by my name. By the end of the season, I'm trying to be on top of that podium, and I will be by the NCAA tournament. So, yeah, just ultimately believing in myself and my capabilities every time I step out on the mat.
You had a great run last March in Tulsa, 7 matches at the NCAA championships to become an All-American. What were you most proud of in that run? What did you learn yourself about in Tulsa?
Kind of like I said before, ultimately that belief in yourself. I actually heard Vito's dad say this earlier in the year, something about a plan going into matches and stuff. He said there is no plan. You just go out there and fight. And that really stuck with me deep. And that's how I've been approaching every single match. Is it's a fight, right? You get in there and you're going to have to fight for 7 minutes, or if it goes into overtime, etc. And that's just how my game plan going into every single match. I mean, you get little things here and there that you got to focus on, but ultimately going out there and making it a fight.
What do you see, Michael, as the difference between confidence and cockiness? Because you've heard folks say, well, it's not cocky if you can back it up. But you know as well as anyone, in the Big Ten, 157 nationally, it's so deep that you can't get too far ahead of yourself. So how do you keep that level of confidence exactly where you want it to be?
I don't even believe in cockiness, to be honest. I believe in confidence in yourself and practice what you preach, right? Like I'm going to say I'm the number one guy in the country because that's what I believe that I'm going to be able to do by the end of the season. If I think I'm going to be the number 6 or whatever, I'm setting the bar and the standard too low for myself. A lot of these guys that are winning national titles, they're not just focused on a national title, they're focused on world Olympic titles and above and beyond just the NCAA tournament, right? So that's what I'm doing. As I'm not setting the bar low for myself. I know I'm the best wrestler in the country. Every time I step onto the mat, I got to wrestle like it. And that's just ultimately believing in yourself, like I said before.
You talked about making it a fight. You had a professional fight in the octagon this past August, first-round finish, and you got to have confidence to step inside that cage when they lock the door and there is nowhere to go. Speak to us about that experience, and is that the game plan after college wrestling to fight?
Yeah, I mean, after the NCAA tournament last year, I was all in on the fight game, and luckily I got the opportunity to still come back even after making my pro MMA debut. Getting locked in a cage is an experience like no other. It's hard to explain. It's exactly kind of what you think of when that door gets slammed behind you. It's mano a mano. You're going in there and fighting for your life, and that's exactly what I did and came out victorious first round. So it was an awesome night. We had a lot of guys from Kill Clip FC fighting on the card, and another gopher, Logan Storley, actually. I got to fight right after him, so that was an exciting experience.
Is that the plan, to continue fighting after college wrestling?
Yeah, I'll be moving back down to Florida right after the season and going right back into the fight game. I want to be world champion in MMA, so I know I got the best staff, best partners down there to do so, and I'm looking forward to it.
I want to know what it is right now about this Minnesota program. You mentioned Logan. Of course, everybody knows about Gable Steveson, what he did at Minnesota, and, of course, what he's doing now as well. Is it Coach Eggum? Is it the culture? What's going on with you guys right now that it doesn't just end when you have to leave the shoes on the mat after the final match up in the cities?
Yeah, here at Minnesota, I mean, we're just competitors here. You know, like, we want to keep competing, and the next thing for us is MMA. And you see wrestlers dominate MMA. You see Bo Nickel, Logan Storley, my buddy Mitch McKee, especially in the Minnesota Gopher alumni. I mean, Brock Lesnar. We got MMA fighters all over that go in there and they conquer early. It doesn't take them a long time to get into that ring and start mauling guys. I mean, it's just one after another, and we've had a couple world champs come out of the Minnesota Gopher room.
Just remind me, next time that I go up to watch a wrestling duel up in Minnesota, I'm going to bring an extra helmet, some shoulder pads, just in case. Hey, Michael, we really appreciate the time. It has been awesome watching you and the Gophers so far this season. Wish you the best of luck, and, of course, leading up to those NCAA championships later this year.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Wrestling, you better be tough. I love this segment. It fires me up. I'm in a full lather right now. Heart's beating. I love it. You never, ever give away those cheap points. Wrestle tough. Stay on top. We begin tough wrestling with one of the best college wrestling rivalries in the country. Division III, the Battle of the Burgs in Minneapolis. Augsburg and Wartburg came down to the final match. Tyler Kim wins it for the Augies at heavyweights. Cooper Willis a pin at 165. Augsburg over Wartburg. Congratulations, some tough wrestling from the Augies. In the Big Ten, we begin at 125 pounds. Matt Ramos, the new #1 at the weight class, wrestling Michael Spangler from Indiana. We talk about it all the time. For Matt Ramos, get to your offense. He scores that first takedown, and he is very crafty in that top position. Riding time over 30 seconds. Matt Ramos here, a couple of really good mat returns. Wants to finish these periods on top, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Restart inside of 20 seconds. Riding time over 1:20. Stays patient, great technique, explodes with the hips, brings Spangler down to the res light. He's up 4-0. Every week we talk about something else. Build on your leads. Build on your leads. That's what Ramos does. Gets himself a takedown. But I give Michael Spangler a lot of credit right here. Would have been an easy time for him to quit. Good duel mate here. He's fighting for his team. Doesn't want to give up bonus points. Ramos wins the match. Credit both these guys in this match. Saw tough wrestling from both guys. But Ramos gets it done. He's won 8 straight duel meets for Purdue. How about this guy? Nash Hutmaker from Nebraska. Look at the score. You know these guys are exhausted. Nash Hutmaker gets the takedown. Going to go up 18-14. Riding time over 1 minute. And check out that mat return. The polar bear puts a cherry on top of it. Hutmaker, 19-14. They combined for 32 points. Tough wrestling from Nash Hutmaker. Shane Griffith, multiple-time All-American, won a national title down at 165 in 2020, won that for Stanford, and he just shows some savvy, some veteran experience, and some grit. Rocco Welsh, superstar freshman for Ohio State. Shane Griffith here in this third period, he is going to go to work on top. Welsh works up. You see he's got that leg snaked in. I like this technique from Griffith. Gonna stay with him, stay sticky. That front trip gets the mat return, and in doing so, going to take riding time over 1 minute. Shane Griffith just finds a way. Tough wrestling there from the Wolverine. Patrick Kennedy of Iowa, up from 165, where he was a Big Ten finalist. Really good defense here. Does not quit on that position. Great reaction from Kennedy. Early second period. Quick escape. Nice job. Gets to his feet. Peels hands. Hip separation. And the Hawkeye takes the lead. This is an impressive shot here from Kennedy. Tough wrestling is part of self-belief. Conviction in yourself. Chases down Ed Ruth. Gets the takedown 4-1. Still 90 seconds in that third period. Patrick Kennedy is not going to give you an inch. You know what you're going to see from the Hawkeye. Patrick Kennedy finishes the match on top. Riding time over 1 minute. Patrick Kennedy, the 5-1 decision. Great win there by the Hawkeye. He loves to be in enemy territory. How about the Gophers? Max McAnally wrestling Brian Soldado. Final seconds at 184. McAnally, the coaching staff loves it. Look at that corner. Garrett Jones, John Posnanski, undefeated, 9th ranked in the country, sudden victory. Garrett Jones on a single leg, looking for a big win in that Gopher singlet. He hunts it down and he gets it. Garrett Jones, tough wrestling. Here's Tyler Wells, true freshman for the Gophers. Sudden victory inside of 5 seconds. Good scramble. Can he get it? Yes, he can. Minnesota, talked about it. They took some grit to Piscataway. 3 big-time wins, a ton of tough wrestling. Back to Minneapolis for the Gophers. Impressive.
These are some of the current guys who can do it. When we come back after the break, it is our time to hit the Wayback Machine. Here's your slate for this upcoming weekend. Ohio State, Penn State from State College. That's the early duel on Friday, followed by Iowa, Michigan. Should be electric in Ann Arbor. Sunday sees Michigan State travel to Bloomington, Minnesota, hosting Northwestern. Our friend Pat Minio, the Wrestling Room, asking the question that a lot of folks in the world of college wrestling are asking right now. What's going on in Little Rock? The Trojans just 6 years as a D1 program, an associate member of the Pac-12. And how about the start this year? They beat Arizona State and Oregon State back-to-back ranked wins. Did lose to Stanford on Sunday. But what a story being crafted right now down in Arkansas, Shane.
They are rocking in Little Rock. A lot of buzz around this program. Rick, this is so important for the growth of college wrestling. Great in Arkansas to have a Division I program. And you said at the job they've done, Neil Erzman competing for the 5th year. As you said, they've been a 6th year. But this team just competes hard. Neil Erzman wrestled at Oklahoma State, was a Big 12 champion. Before Little Rock was on the staff with Coleman Scott at North Carolina, they are 11-5, and yeah, they are buzzing, and it's gotten the attention of the college wrestling world. I love to see it.
You also love to see when we look back in time and some of the great names from the former Big Ten teams, like our subject in today's edition of Remember That Guy. And I know you remember Tommy Rowlands, early 2000s at Ohio State, a 4-time All-American, some classic NCAA matches in 2002, 2004, and he still loves the game, Shane, because he was one of those nearly 5,000 on hand this past weekend to see his alma mater come back at the Covelli Center and beat Michigan.
One of the all-time greats at Ohio State, 3-time national finalist, 2-time national champion, 2-time Big Ten champion. Tommy Rowlands was phenomenal, one of the best at heavyweight, and they have another pretty good one there at Ohio State right now.
I was going to say, Feldman did some unbelievable stuff this past weekend. Maybe not Tommy Rowlands-esque yet.
Not yet.
But perhaps he has time to get there. As always, we appreciate you hanging with us here on Wrestling and Beyond. Rick Pizzo, Shane Sparks. We'll do it again next week.